right, so Mark, why don't we move on to our next topic? Why don't you tell our viewer what do you see here on this diagram?
Yeah, this one is simply talking about ego. Okay, now ego is your feeling, your individual feeling of your own self-importance. And in the Western side, we have a diagram, a picture of a person that is huge, right, taking up
Okay,
all the space. And the Eastern side is a very, very
okay,
small person, signifying that a Western ego is much bigger than the
okay,
Eastern ego. Now, it's important to note that ego is not necessarily a negative thing,
okay.
right?
So having
Ego,
an ego is not a bad thing.
it's not a bad thing unless it gets out of control,
Okay,
right? So what this diagram is showing, I think, is a little bit skewed. It looks like there's a giant ego on one
right,
side and
right.
none on the other. But I will say for sure, a Western person's sense of ego, a sense of self, a sense of self-importance is a little bit bigger than in an Asian culture,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right?
I agree. Mm-hmm.
But we're taught that. We're taught to speak up for yourself. We're taught to, question things. And from an Asian perspective, that things, oh, you have a big ego.
Right.
You're asking questions, you're doing stuff. But for us, it's kind of normal. We're supposed to have a little bit of an ego to exude a little bit of your self-worth.
Well, I guess I agree with you that in the Western culture, you are more self-aware of what you want, who you are,
Your
your
capabilities,
capabilities,
yeah.
what you are good at, your strengths, your weaknesses. I mean, I guess
Your goals.
your goals,
Yeah.
okay, and then I guess it's probably like starting from when you were little in school. I mean, the education has trained you to think that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get it from education, you get it from your parents. You're
Mm-hmm.
always be confident in what you
Mm-hmm.
do,
Mm.
whether it's music, whether it's school, whether it's sports, just be confident,
Right.
right? So you develop a little bit of an ego, and I think you need that. You need
Mm-hmm.
that to be successful in life. What would constitute for you if you saw a Westerner at work and say that person has a big ego? What would they do to show you they have a big ego?
I was gonna ask you the same thing because I was trying to, the big ego. I was gonna ask you, can you give me an example of when would you call someone, he got a big ego by Western standard?
Probably if they put their needs, their wants, their desires ahead of everybody else.
Okay.
No matter, what other people feel or what people are doing, I'm the one that's
I
going to
see.
be up front. I'm the one that's not wrong. That egotistical
Okay.
mindset.
Okay. And well, for me, if I think someone who has a big ego would be he thinks he is the best, he or she is the best. Okay, like me, I'm the
And
best.
tells you about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually being very well not shy about it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm the best. Okay, if I were you, I would do this. Oh, I'm better at that.
I will agree with this diagram in a sense that in my work experience, the biggest egos that I saw were from Western people.
Really?
For sure. For the people that I worked with, I
Okay.
wouldn't say in general everybody has a big ego,
Okay.
but the ones who did were definitely
Tell us more. This is
no.
fun.
It's just with a lot of it came with job title, right?
Okay, okay.
The job title once you get up to VP and that kind of stuff, the egos just became huge
Okay.
because they're so self-important. They're never wrong.
Okay.
That kind of whatever I say is correct, and their confidence was unbelievable. And a lot of times their confidence was misplayed, was misdirected. It was wrong, but they never wavered. They never wavered in the face of being completely wrong because they were so egotistical and self-important.
Right.
I can't be wrong, and I have not seen that outward egotistical behavior from an Asian person I've worked with.
In our culture, we have this saying. It's called "You change the seat, you change your head." Okay, you change your seat, you change your position.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you kind of lost. You kind of forgot who you used to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Mm-hmm.
change. Like you change. You become a totally different person. Okay, like you say. I mean, you got a bigger title. You got promoted, and then you think that you, for some reason, you are more powerful, okay, or like you have more authority in this business setting or company hierarchy. Okay,
I
so
think
yeah,
you have to be careful with mixing authority with ego and confidence,
okay, how's
right?
that?
Because you can have all the authority in the world.
Mm,
You could be the VP or the president, but not be confident, not have an ego.
mm,
You have the authority to back it up. It
okay,
says on your job title, right? But you
right,
might not have the ego to go with it, right? There could be very humble vice presidents and presidents. Or opposite, you could have someone on a base level of a company who has a huge ego, but their title doesn't afford them that yet, but they already have a big ego,
mm-hmm.
right?
A
So
little bit premature ego. Would you say having a big ego equal to more self-centered? Is that
for sure, yeah.
okay? Okay. Well, in that case, in the business setting, in our culture, I don't think we a lot of workers or a lot of employees we are not self-centered enough. Okay, we could use a little bit more of ego so that we can be a little bit more opinionated, so that we are more willing to speak up and stand out. Okay, not unlike what you just said in our earlier diagrams that we just shut up. And I mean, if we could, our ego could be a little bit bigger. I mean, maybe the situation will be different. We're more willing to speak up, and then
Okay, I'm going to give you an example, but I have to disagree because
sure.
regardless of because we're going to go the last diagram we have is going to cover everything. Now, in my experience, we talked about problems before, right? We talk about speaking up. If your ego is a little bit bigger in an Eastern, Taiwanese, or Southeast Asian system, it's going to get squashed. It's
Right.
going to look like it is problems, causing problems. And,
True.
like I said, I raised a question and my Taiwanese colleagues are, why are you showing off?
Right.
I just asked a question,
Mm.
right? But I will say, having worked for an American company who also, we had Taiwanese employees, when the Taiwanese employees in front of Western management stood up a little bit and separated themselves, it was really noticed
Mm.
because it's rare.
Right.
It is really rare. So when a Taiwanese person elevated themselves or did something or went above and beyond, it was sought or it was looked upon by the Western management as really, really good. Like, wow, there is someone we should get behind. There is someone that we can help move up through the system.
Well, Mark, you know what? I gotta say that this diagram about ego is a very abstract concept. I think we're
Yeah.
trying to we have tried our best to try to give an explanation here, and then based on our experiences, our stories. But then again, for our viewers, I mean, I encourage you to discover more about this ego issue in your everyday life, whether it's Asian culture business setting or like Taiwanese culture setting or even an international company business setting. Okay, so
Yeah,
pay a little bit attention to that.
And we have to remember that ego is also very subjective. It's very
Very.
much about the individual, but in general, Western egos seem to be a little bit more developed, and Eastern side's a little more pushed
Yeah,
down, right?
yeah. For this, I agree.